What's good with it? LL Chicago. Your boys are in the building. Sean Davis, that dude, and Peyton's son, Jared Payton. No better people to talk about the Chicago Bears on this Saturday morning. Bears fans should be rejoicing all over the world with what Ryan Poles was able to bring back and trading the number one pick. Kudos to our boy, Lovey Smith. Thank you. The consulting check is definitely in the mail. We appreciate you what you did on that last Sunday of the NFL regular season. But left before we hear from Ryan Poles, let's talk about you've been around this team, you've covered this team, you've talked to players. Also want to welcome in our boy JR Bang.
Yo,
So look, this trio right here, this is basically you all are getting a peek of six and state conversations. You know what I mean? These are the studio conversations that used to take place on Sixth and State back in the day. So it's no better trio to talk Chicago Bears. Before we get to Ryan Poles, the number one overall pick, being moved, fellas, I just want to talk about Ryan Poles. He comes in. The one thing that stands out for me is we haven't had transparency from a front office in a long time with the Chicago Bears. Everything has seemed real murky. The one thing that stands out with me is that Ryan Poles has pretty much been transparent and telling Bears fans, I'm not about to rush. I'm not about to spend money. We're gonna do this right way, build it slowly, and get to the point where we are now, where he knows he feels the pressure that he has to get this right because he knows the opportunity that faces him. What stands out to you guys about Ryan Poles?
Bang,
I,
what's up? You go.
well, first of all, shouts out to y'all, man. Shouts out to y'all, man. Thank y'all for having me on, JP. Miss you, man. Last time I saw you was a Super Bowl friend. Um, it started off rocky for me, you know what I'm saying. But just like all of this, anytime you change regimes, you know, it's going to start off a little rocky. You might be a little bit nervous. The Roquan Smith thing gave allowed me to give him the title of Leo Pose because it reminded me of like Def Jam, how Leo Cohen came in and took over Def Jam. You know, all of the people who held down the crown were starting to get let go to bring in the new generation. But this postseason has changed all of that for me. I think he's made all of the right moves. I think he's did all of the right things, and I'm cool with him now.
Yeah. For I knew that change was going to come just because, looking at the previous regime, that things needed to change and it needed to be this organization had to be run in the correct way, and you had to be show that you were competent, that you knew what needed to be done. You didn't need to listen to the outside voices. And I think that's what I saw from Poles from the beginning. I mean, I've had conversations with him. So, getting a chance to know him as a man, he don't care what other people think, man. Like, he's going to do it his way, and he's got a method to his madness. And I think for Bears fans early on, like Bang was talking about, people felt burned. They felt like being in that relationship with that person that doesn't, it goes rocky, and then next thing you know after that, it's like you have trust issues, and you don't want to trust that next relationship, and you're always doubting like, this is too good to be true, or you're holding yourself back. I didn't. I let myself go from the beginning going, okay, just knowing where he came from KC, the people that he was around, the good, powerful minds, and seeing how KC built things, to understand that like this dude he gets it when it comes to the draft room and figuring out his roster and how he wants it to be kind of outplay and how he wants it to look. I never had an issue with Poles. I love what Poles has done. The only thing, and there's no issue here, it's just seeing that now that he has gone through, made this type of move, now I want to see in his second draft what he's going to be able to do, because you didn't have any first round draft picks last year. And last year, what everybody was hoping for was to go get offense, a wide receiver, or whatever it was for Justin. he flipped the script on everybody. He was like, I'm taking 2 defensive players on the back end for my defense. Dude. I don't care what you guys think. And I questioned it a little bit. I was like, whoa, I don't understand. I get it now. But now it's about how do you build this now? Now you do have a first round pick. Now you got another first round pick in the future. So it's like you're building draft capital now, and it's easy to tear it down like Bang was talking about and getting rid of names. Like everybody knows like Roquan Smith and Mack and guys that were staples and household names here in Chicago. He broke it down. But now it's like this is the challenge, is to be able to build it all the way back up. And we haven't seen that yet. But I'm going to trust the process with Poles, man. I love what he did. He had conviction, what he was talking about to people out there in Indy. He was talking his talk. And not only was he talking his talk, man, he knew in his back pocket, in his sleeve, that he had something. And he showed that yesterday of making this move early, which I think is beneficial for the organization, how they want to go forward. But it's also beneficial to people like us because now it gives us time from here to the draft to be talking about what the Bears are going to do and the possibilities that they have, especially with that 9th overall pick.
It was interesting because most of the Chicago media talked to him before he went to the combine. And the discussion was about not only trading early versus trading late, but the conversation was also about what's your approach to the combine, having the number 1 pick. And I think when he said, look, it just makes it more about information. Like I have to gather more information. We have to do more to gather information because it's not just about knowing who can go at 1. We have to know who we might get at 2, who we might get at 4, who we might get at 7, 8, 9, so on and so forth. If we acquire these picks in the 2nd round or the 3rd round, total picks now landing at 10, Bang. With all of that going into the NFL Combine and what we've seen where the Bears land, because we're going to get to Ryan Poles in a second, do you think ultimately that they moved at the right time for what he wants to do?
Yeah, I think so, because you got to realize that free agency starts next week too.
Yeah.
And first off, fans are impatient. And especially when you got the number 1 pick, it's almost like when you get some money in your pocket. When you like get that first check, it's like, oh man, we got to spend it. We got to spend it. I got to go get a house. I got to go get a car. I got to go get all of those things, right?
Yeah.
And it's the first time we got a paycheck like this. Like we've gotten paychecks before, but this is the first one we've ever gotten like this. So in my opinion, they moved it at the right time because free agency is next week. And since free agency is next week, you want to get a chance to now start to reset your roster. But because what's going on with the quarterback position currently right now in the NFL, like this weekend, we're waiting to see if Aaron Rodgers is going to make the decision to go to the Jets or not. They say that, that the trade is done. It just needs Aaron's approval. We got David Carr today finally signing with the Saints. We have all of these people that are looking to move around, and we know that number 1 pick has everything to do with the quarterback position. So it was definitely the perfect time to do so. And by doing that, I think they maximized and fleeced the Carolina Panthers because there's no way in the world
you're going fleece with it.
I ain't no way in the world I'm giving away DJ Moore. How I'm going to look for a quarterback and not have a wide receiver to throw it to? To me, it was the fleecing of Carolina.
Hey, man, let me tell you something. This dude Poles, man, he stuck these cats up, man. This dude came in with the what's it called, with the with the mask on that the kids be wearing. Yo, he came in, slid through, was like, yo, I want all that and I want DJ Moore. Let me get all that. Dude.
AP, he came in like the 3 females that robbed Club Shiznit.
Yes, yeah, he came through. But that's the thing. That's it comes back to not only being confident in what you want, but also as well having those relationships and people, trusting you. But it also goes to show, let's be honest here. It's like we talked about last night, Sean. It's quarterback driven league, right? So
Right.
teams that are looking to find that quarterback, they're going to do anything. They're going to do anything to be able to do it. I mean, you heard Indy was talking about too. Like Indy was willing to. I don't know what they offered to give up, but these teams that need quarterbacks, they gotta figure it out. Even if it's the wrong deal, you gotta. And it's that year and how it falls to you. You gotta take a swing if you're in the lookings and runnings for a quarterback. So I give him a lot of credit for being able to manufacture all this and put it together. And Poles is a smart dude, man. This dude's a smart dude.
Yeah.
And that's why I rock with him. I rock with him because I see what he's all about, man. And he gets it that you do have to tear this thing down. And when I see him tearing down this roster, I was like, man, people ain't gonna like this. But the only reason why people don't like it in Chicago is we're accustomed to, like, when it comes to our football, sports too, but in football, just being 500. Like, oh, we tear it down a little bit. We don't want to tear it down too much, but we want to just add to it. Dude, we've never done it where you strip it down and you build this thing back up from this, like you tear it all down and build it back up. I think that's what we're seeing here from Poles, man. And I'm excited for what the future holds, because if you look at it, and I did it last night, just in a collage, put together the offensive weapons now that the Bears do have, and everybody is slotted where they need to be. Like, everybody's going to have a role. Like, Chase Claypool's not going to have to come in Chicago when he steps into Chicago, and now everybody thinking he's a number one. Though he's not a number one. That's not him. That's not what he does. But now he can focus on what he does. And I think it's going to take some of that pressure away from him. He comes in. With DJ Moore, when you have a number one, a dude that can be a legit number one, dog, they eat that pressure, bro. They want that pressure. That's what makes them number ones. They different than everybody else. Like, their mindset is totally different. And now Mooney has the opportunity as well to, like, figure out what he wants to be, and they can figure out how they want to use him the correct way, where he doesn't have to be the guy. He doesn't have to be the dude, but he is one of the dudes. So everybody's gonna have a position. I looked at it on the collage. I was like, dog, these dudes about to they nice. Like,
look, man, JP, you got a D-ball threat in DJ Moore. You got a red zone threat in Chase Claypool. Your slot is taken care of with Mooney. And then you got Komet patrolling the middle. They got everything that they need. And then you look at the division, and you see the division losing pieces and they're gaining pieces. I'm not about to jump out the box and say anything crazy. All I'm saying is
Bang,
that
you always say stuff crazy. I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm gonna hold it until after the draft. When the draft comes, I'm talking crazy. But offensively, at the wide receiver positions, even looking at the wrong St. Brown, because I'm gonna continue calling him the wrong St. Brown until he make the right moves. But the wrong St. Brown being there as a fourth, come on, man. I think we're gonna be okay with the wide receiver position, and it allows you to go take care of other pieces now.
Yeah.
Ryan Poles talked about the possibility and the advantages of possibly trading early.
That it might benefit us to move, before free agency, opens potentially. But again, when we get back with all the information that we've gathered from here, I think we'll have a better direction.
Is that just because it would give you a clearer view of what you need, or how would it be beneficial?
A clear view of what we need. And there's scenarios where you could, add players as well, potentially, which again gives you some clarity on what you want to do in the draft and free agency.
So, man, he was pretty straightforward talking about that, and that was when he met with the Chicago media before he headed down to Indianapolis for the NFL Combine. Just letting it be known. I think at that point in time, he had already received offers. He spoke about it in that same press conference. He was just going to gather information in Indianapolis. There have been multiple reports saying that this deal pretty much was done in Indianapolis. They just had to figure some other things out. And the fact that he mentioned the benefit of moving early with this situation is a player being added in the actual compensation coming back. And that ended up being DJ Moore, someone you guys just talked about. JP, you said, look, you have a dog in that number one slot, you let him eat.
Let him eat. Hey, I'm gonna say this real quick because I got to run. I might be able to jump back on in a second. I got to get my kids, but I'm gonna say this: the Bears have an opportunity now if they do this the right way, which Ryan Poles has made a lot of the right decisions leading up to this point. They literally can turn this thing around and be moving in the right direction this year and next year. Like literally in 2 years, they literally can get this thing to a point where they're winning the division pretty quick. With what they do in free agency, and to me, it's not just about the best players. It's about bringing in the best players that fit not only your system, but also character-wise, what you're trying to build inside of your locker room. If you can bring that together, some guys that have actually been in experiences that have won before, that are accustomed to winning, bringing that into what's going on and the hype that I think people are feeling. Because y'all think y'all think that we are hype? Bro, them dudes in the Bears locker room are hype too.
Man.
They hype right now, like, we doing this.
Man.
Like, we got an opportunity. So I think it's an opportunity for this to be special. Foles has a lot on his plate right now, but guess what? All he's shown me is he's cool, calm, and collective. He's gonna go about this the right way, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they do here over the next couple of months. It's gonna be exciting, especially next year with the new league year starting. So, hey, y'all keep it up. I'm gonna jump back on in a second.
Yeah, because we're about to talk about the number 9 and who to get in a few minutes. I know you want to get into that, Pete.
We here.
You'll see me back in here in a minute. I'll be back.
All right, that's Jared Payton. He'll be back. Myself once again, Sean Davis, my guy J.R. Bang. We're talking the Bears moving that number 1 pick, and the way it came down yesterday. Because usually on Fridays, Bang, we're both in the media. People use Fridays to dump stories all the time.
It's your day off.
Yeah.
It ain't a day off, but it's your day off. No,
and
you can go take a nap now.
Yeah. And when it hit yesterday, it hit in the middle of what is deemed as the beginning of March Madness with all the conference championships and tournaments going on around the country. It hit and it pretty much stopped everything. Everybody stopped to talk about this deal on social media. Ultimately, the Bears traded the number 1 pick to the Carolina Panthers. They receive in return the number 9 pick. Also, pick number 61, which is at the end of the second round in 2023. 2024 first round pick. Looking at the Panthers roster this year, it could be another top 5 pick.
Oh, look. This is why I call it the fleecing of Carolina.
And then the 25 second round pick in DJ Moore.
Yeah,
go ahead.
That's why I call it the fleecing of Carolina. You know, you got the fleecing of America. This is the fleecing of Carolina. Because you traded and got quite possibly their best offensive player. Well, ain't no quite possibly. You got those picks and you got their best offensive player. Now, by doing that, I mean, no knock on Terrence Marshall and Shot Smith. No knock on Foreman or any of the running back room. And they do got a pretty decent offensive line.
Yeah.
But that offense runs through DJ Moore. And the Bears got those picks and a team's best offensive player. And not only that, his contract is very team friendly. His extension starts this year, and it's a manageable extension. So you're not even overpaying somebody just to have a number 1. This trade is not only just for this year, it's for next year. Because I know there's some Bears fans who don't want to hear this, but it must be said. If Justin Fields is not the answer at quarterback, you position yourself to have quite possibly another top 5 pick, because what happens at Carolina with a depleted offense, and you just really got Brian Burns at the defensive end. That defense is going to be good, but they're not going to have an offense that should withstand the NFC South even the way it is right now. So there's a possibility that the Bears could have a top 5 pick along with their pick. And if they're not as good as what they feel that they are, you could package those picks right there and that 2025 to move up if you need to, it depending on who gets that number 1 pick. Or if Carolina gets that pick, it's yours. And you slot yourself to get a Caleb Williams or May, which we all know that those are quite possibly the top 2 picks in this year's draft. But because of where Claypool's contract is, because where the my man DJ Moore's contract is, with him not having no guaranteed money after this year, if that pick is slotted in a certain spot and Justin is as good as advertised, you have the opportunity to grab quite possibly the best player overall in the draft in Marvin Harrison Jr. at the wide receiver spot. There's a lot to go into this trade where some people, some meathead fans, I'll say meathead fans, some meathead fans will look at this trade and be like, oh man, you could have traded down to Houston and got their picks and then traded down again to get the Colts pick. People, mocks are mocks. They're mocks for a reason. They're mocks for entertainment. They're mocks to get you through that period between when the Super Bowl ends and when the draft begins. They're mocks for a reason. But Poles maximized on everything he could get times 2. Because it's not just about this year's draft. If Justin is not as good as advertised and he sees some chinks in the armor, there's 2 quarterbacks that if they would have came out in this draft today, the conversation around that number 1 pick and Justin Fields would be totally different if Caleb Williams and May were in this year's draft. It'd be a totally different conversation. But if he is, and that Carolina Panthers pick is top 3, Marvin Harrison, welcome to Chicago.
Marvin Harrison Jr. next year as a pick for the Chicago Bears would be absolutely amazing.
Man.
Once again, Chicago Bears, they trade the number 1 pick to the Carolina Panthers. We're talking about it right here. Jared Payton will be back soon. I'm Sean Davis, my guy, J.R. Bang. Six and State Convos. This is how we've been doing it for years, over a decade. Look, they landed number 9. This is where it gets interesting to me, Left. This is where it gets interesting to me. All right, because Ryan Poles talked about the value bucket. For those of you that don't know that term, get used to hearing it because Ryan Poles is going to say that until the draft goes down. And this is what he said about moving back and the players that are in his value bucket.
We might talk about really getting our draft board set up, see where, if we move to this spot, who's available. I always talk about value, right? So there's going to be certain players that are going to be in the value bucket. How many are there, which is going to dictate how far we can move back.
All right, Bang, this is where we get to have fun. They get the number 9 overall pick. Who do we think sits in the value bucket for the Bears at number 9? Because I know your take. I have a different take, but go ahead.
So my first thought before all of the stuff went down with Jalen Carter is that he would be the pick that the Bears will look to. And I think none of this happens if Jalen Carter, does not have the issues that he has. And I know it might sound bad what I'm about to say, but I think that the Bears looked at the Colts like, I can't go farther than 4th. But then this happens, and then then you go and you say, I might could go down farther than that. Because I think that Jalen Carter is number 1 on their draft boards, but he's number 1 where he's the best player. But can I get that best player? And I think that the player that the Bears covet because they felt like they couldn't get Jalen Carr is Tyree Wilson. I think while they were in Indianapolis, it just felt like to me that Tyree Wilson was the guy. It's like, you know what? Right. It's like, you know what? I can get everybody. I don't know if I can get Carter.
Yeah.
But I know I can get him.
Yeah.
And I think that all roads pointed to the Bears being able to go get Wilson. But the Carter thing happened. So I think at 9, the Bears are going to have an interesting decision depending on what happens with Anthony Richardson. What happens there? Because first of all, let me say this, and I'm going to throw this out here again because I think a lot of people, when I said this on some dude pod, they looked at it crazy. But I'm not looking at this crazy. If I'm the Arizona Cardinals, I'm looking long and hard at a quarterback at 3.
That's fair.
I'm looking long and hard at a quarterback at 3 because Kyler Wilson's not playing the first probably 8 games of the year. And I'm not sure if he's my guy because I didn't draft him, but I know that contract might have me a bit stuck. But we know it's the NFL. We can make some things work if a trade needs to happen.
Well, I mean, that's a lot of starved teams at the quarterback position.
Yes, they are.
I'm sure someone might be willing to trade for Kyler Murray at that slot now with the way the quarterback salaries are escalating moving forward.
Exactly, but it looks like they're not going to do that. So that number 3 is now up for grabs. So when you look at that number 3, you look at the teams. You look at it. I mean, if you read the Carolina tea leaves, and I know some things that I heard talking to some people in Carolina before the trade happened is, the one thing somebody told me is, I think they hope that CJ Stroud is available when they get a chance to pick. But after the combine, you ain't getting CJ Stroud because CJ Stroud had the combine that you need to have if the number 1 overall person is not going to throw or do anything, and he has questions. CJ Stroud, all he needed to do is show he can do what he can do at the combine, that he can do what he did at that game, at that final game of his career. All he had to do is show that he's capable, and then you have a team that's probably going to jump up that don't have the avenue to wait to get a quarterback. That's what Carolina does.
Yeah.
Carolina gets CJ. The Texans get Bryce Young, who I think Bryce Young in a dome type of situation, in a control type of situation like the Texans, I like him there. But if I'm at the number 3 pick and I'm looking at that Arizona pick, if I'm somebody like the Colts, do I move up 1 because I'm worried that the Las Vegas Raiders might jump up? I'm doing it because I'm nervous. Anything else? But then you got the Seattle Seahawks like, hey, man, we might look long and hard at a quarterback. And if when Geno comes out and says, I'm willing to mentor QB.
Right, because Geno in the second year, the guaranteed money, they have an opt-out that they put in there that they can get out of the contract Seattle. So it's definitely beneficial for them to look quarterback.
He's getting $52 million this year. He's getting the bulk of his money this year. So it's really just another 1-year rental. And we like, yo, Geno, we're going to give you a whole bunch of money this year to basically help us out. So we're going to hook you up for hooking us up. I bet. We draft Anthony Richardson. You mentor him and everything. Maybe even play another year depending on what goes on. And then we got Anthony Richardson. But then if I'm the Colts, though, I'm sitting there like, Will Levis, I ain't mad at that. But Anthony Richardson's combine was amazing. I don't know who wants who. Let me go get that 3rd pick. But while you're all doing that, the Bears is looking at the draft board saying, okay, 3 quarterbacks pick with the first 3 picks. Then depending on if a trade down did happen, maybe it's 4. Because now you're looking at Richardson, and I'm sitting up there at number 9. Now I'm looking at Will Anderson.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to grab him. You're looking at offensive linemen. You're looking at a couple of players there. So if I'm the Bears, this is the best opportunity for me to shore up that offensive line. If I can't pronounce my man's name, so I'm not going to butcher it, but homeboy from Northwestern, if he's there,
Peter Skoronsky.
there you go. I look at that, but then I also look at, am I getting the guard or am I getting the tackle? Because he could be slotted at both. He has the projections to do well at both, but is he a better guard than he is a tackle? We've already dealt with that with Tevin Jenkins. Or do I look at a Paris Johnson? The boy is big. The boy is a tackle. That's what we need. But if I have done my due diligence to go through back channels to talk to some of these players, is an Orlando Brown Jr. a possibility? If Orlando Brown Jr. is a possibility, you slide Braxton Jones at the right tackle. You have Brown at the left tackle. You got Tevin already slotted at a spot on the offensive line. You just got to shore up those other positions, which you can still do that in this draft and free agency.
See, my only pushback about Orlando Brown Jr. with me being a huge Pat Mahomes fan, I watch pretty much every game. I have not seen a left tackle in that system not play well.
Right. Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, their previous left tackle tore his Achilles. That's why he missed the Super Bowl against Tampa Bay. But up until that point, he was an all-pro left tackle. It played very well. So I just worry about overpaying for someone that elevated themselves when they left the Baltimore Ravens via the trade. They traded him to Kansas City, or Kansas City traded for him from Baltimore. He was primarily a right tackle. He goes to left tackle for the Chiefs, plays well in that system, but he has a quarterback that's on the field making all the checks, making all the calls, and you pretty much know, look, 1, 2, 3, if I can hold my guy for 3 seconds, either the ball is gone or he's gone.
Yep.
And we're good. With Justin, a young quarterback, that concerns me a little bit. I do like, if you gave me the choice between Skoronsky and Paris Johnson, I would probably take Johnson just on pure size, which is needed in the NFL at left tackle. I know Skoronsky's arms are a little bit shorter. That's a concern. And athletically, he might be more suited to be a right tackle.
Yep.
Right? But like you said, Tevin Jenkins, inside, you have guys like Ben Jones, and you have to wait this week because I think a lot more teams over the weekend are going to release a lot more players before free agency starts. You might be able to build the interior of your offensive line via free agency at a cheaper rate, take Paris at left tackle, and then move on from that. But see, this is my thing. At 9, I think the Bears are in position to whereas they don't have to go get need. And this is something me and JP and I talked about last night. When you're at 9, forget need, especially if you've taken care of your business in free agency. If you take care of the offensive line of free, because I'm not saying no to Orlando Brown Jr., I'm just saying buyer beware. Because
it's buyer beware just off the money.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a lot of money. That's a lot of money of what you have to be paying one player.
Yeah.
I just wouldn't be mad at it. But I'll just say this before you go. If there was a person that I think I would pick if I was running the Bears and I was at 9, depending on who would be leaving, I know people are going to look at me crazy. But Bijan Robinson is not a bad pick to me at number 9.
So you're right there with me. You're right there with me because, man, when P gets back on, he'll tell you P is torn because P has a affinity for David Montgomery. He really does. And he's like, man, I really hope they can bring Demo back. And Saquon going back to the Giants, I hope that makes Demo more of a possibility to come back to the Bears. Look, Bijan Robinson is probably the second or third best player in this draft. Man. Period. And you talk about a difference maker next to Justin Fields, and you built up the wide receiver room, and you've made the offensive line better. Now, this is if you take Bijan Robinson at 9, or let's just say, for some odd reason, the quarterbacks, or one of the 4 quarterbacks drops to 9, and a team in the teams gives you more picks to move up.
Man.
Then, if Bijan Robinson is in my value bucket, you darn right I take the opportunity to go and get him and add him to that offense. Because now, and I was telling Pete this, if you handle the offensive line in the draft, you've already handled the wide receiver core. Now, after Bijan Robinson, you can go full defense in the draft.
And we keep saying draft like free agency ain't next week.
They're talking. First of all, we know how the NFL is. They've been talking to agents for the last 2 weeks.
That's why I said if you did your due diligence with having your back channel conversations, you know when that league year starts, who's going to get some money.
Absolutely.
So that's why even at the 9th pick, I'm not like if people say that did they trade early? No, you know. What's going to happen as soon as the league year starts when you make that trade?
Yeah.
When you make that trade knowing that I'm probably going to get this player here, slot him right there. I'm going to get that player right there, slot him right there. I'm not – the wide receiver position is not hot out here at all. I'm not about to go overpay to get one of these wide receivers that are not as good as the players that I have right now. You see Saquon gets the franchise tag, you probably in that situation go, dang it. But you do look at Demo and you say, but I know we got a fail-safe here with Demo. But again, if you've done your due diligence, you know you don't have to go get these top people in this draft here at that level. Because I know we've already basically negotiated with this left tackle or this right guard or this center or this defensive tackle, because you have to look at the Philadelphia Eagles defense. And you have to look at some of the pieces that are gone. And you look at the Indianapolis Colts defense and the pieces that are available to you because they know that. And you got to look at one, the defensive coordinator formerly of the Colts is not a head coach. So you're more likely to go to a system that you know. And then you got Ian Cunningham over there, the assistant general manager for the Bears, who spent time in the Eagles program and helped draft a lot of those players. So you look at a Javon Hargrave and you look at the defensive tackle position right there. And even though he's a little bit older than the Draymond Jones, he knows you. You have a good relationship with him and he can fit at that D tackle position. All right, I go in, slide in that D tackle position. So maybe a Jalen Carter is not as attractive to you than you would because you probably already have that to position slotted because you had the right conversations that you needed to have. That's why Bijan Robinson, to me, is a bit more interesting in the Bears uniform than some others. You don't have to go wide receiver. So, my man from Ohio State, Jackson, we don't have to worry about him. Or an Addison, you don't have to worry about him. We just got to wait to see what free agency looks like. But my pick would be Bijan Robinson.
Hang, I'm right there with you. And Pete, man, that's why I want Pete to get back on. Pete and I had an argument last night about this because Pete, he just loves David Montgomery. Yeah. And David Montgomery has huge leadership value for the Chicago Bears in that locker room. Like, I get it. Everyone on the roster right now will vouch for the leadership of David Montgomery through some tough times. There's no one that's played harder week to week and given everything that he's got more than David Montgomery. So I understand people that love him and want to bring him back at a pretty decent contract. We'll probably sit, I think he wanted somewhere around 8-9, if I'm not mistaken. But we'll see. If he doesn't go to the Bears, he's going to end up on a good team. Yeah, I fully believe that.
But see, it's the value bucket thing.
This is let's put 5 players in the value bucket. I think Jalen Carter at 9 is in the value bucket.
Jalen Carter at 9, Tyree Wilson is in that bucket.
I think Bijan Robinson is
Yeah,
in that
he's
bucket.
in that bucket.
This is somebody that I don't know if he's there at 9 because there are teams at 7 and 8. Specifically the Eagles, based upon what they just did with both of their defensive backs.
Oh yeah.
I watched every game of Devin Witherspoon.
Yes.
Every game. And the Gonzalez kid is probably going to go to the Lions.
Those were the two I was thinking about right there.
If Witherspoon gets by the Eagles, because the Eagles could also go defensive line, because they're going to lose a lot of defensive line via free agency.
They're going to lose a lot of defense, period.
So if Witherspoon's there, I would put him in the value bucket. Right? So that's 4 players in the value bucket. Give me somebody else that you think is going to go. If Gonzalez is there. Okay.
Gonzalez
go for the defensive backs.
Because you got Jalen Johnson on one side. You got, let's say, Gonzalez. You have Gonzalez on the other side. You have Kyler Gordon that mans the slot right there. Your safety position is taken care of for the next couple of years. With both, imagine a defensive backfield that consists of Jalen Johnson, Gonzalez, or Gonzalez. I just say Gonzalez. I'll just stick with one. Kyler Gordon in the slot. And then you have Bojack and Brisker. It takes something that was a weakness 2 years ago, improving this past year, to now, if you look at that division, that's probably the best defensive backfield in the division, other than the Packers. And then, again, it's about what you do in free agency when it comes to your front 7. Because they could clear up some things on the front 7 and not spend a boatload of money and look at your defensive backfield and go, ain't nobody passing on us with this right here.
Yeah.
This right here. That defensive backfield is going to help that front 7 tremendously. So that would not be a surprise to me either when you look at, the talent that you have already at the position and you're making it better. But Bijan Robinson is my pick. I do think Tyree Wilson will be the pick for the Chicago Bears, barring Jalen Carter being available at number 9. Because I got a feeling he's not going to be available. I got a feeling that if there's one coach and there's one organization that's going to be like, you know what? He going to be good in our program. That's the Seattle Seahawks.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't think Jalen Carter's going past 5.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he's not going past 5.
That's why I love the value bucket. Would they ever double down? You just picked up DJ Moore. Would they go grab Jackson Smith and Jigba, who played with Justin Fields?
Nah, I think
he's in the value bucket.
I don't think he's in the value bucket right
now. Even if he's the top player on the board at that time.
Yeah.
You still think they look to trade back or take someone else?
I think they'll trade back because it's just depending on who's there available. Like so if you look at the draft, right, and you start to look at those people in like between 10 and 13, and you have somebody in your bucket that's around that, you trade that pick and you get some more people. And I think that's more than a possibility when you look at like, let's say the Houston Texans. Let's go with the Houston Texans, right? Because if the Houston Texans go get Bryce Young, they definitely need somebody at the wide receiver position. Facts. So if I'm looking at the Bears at 9. Like, I know Philadelphia is not going to pick a wide receiver. Mm-hmm. Tennessee is a crapshoot though, because they just dropped Robert Woods. They just cut him, so there's a possibility that they could go wide receiver again. I think so. You look at the Patriots and the Jets. I think that the Jets have really stocked that wide receiver, but the Patriots are not. There's a good possibility that they could lose their starting wide receiver. I hate to say this, but you also look at the Green Bay Packers as well. I think there's a number of teams that could go down to try to grab one of these wide receivers that might be available. around that time. But I do think the Texans is the team that I would look out for to say, hey, they might be willing to trade up to go grab one of those wideouts.
So from 12, they come up to 9. You pick up the 12, and you pick up the second round pick. That would be a nice haul.
Yeah. And depending on what happens, you still got a Cam Smith out there at the defensive backfield. You still got a Quentin Johnson if you do want to go and grab you a wide receiver.
Now, see, Quentin Johnson for me now is perfect for the Bears. Let's see, because he's only run 2 routes in college. He was only required to run 2 routes at TCU. That was it.
Yeah.
Right? Either he was running an under route, crossing route, or he was running a post fly. That's it. Not polished as far as route running, but now you have multiple wide receivers that are polished in Mooney and DJ Moore. Now you can bring him in and let him play his DK Metcalf thing.
Bingo.
Man, go make plays down the field. I definitely can see that if they move back. But look, in that 9 to 12 range, the sexiest thing to me would be picking up Bijan Robinson. And I understand just because he's a running back, people would have things to say about it. Why get a running back that early? At that point, if you have a Hall of Famer in front of you, a Hall of Fame type talent, all pro type talent, you get it. I don't care what position he plays.
Here's another thought that I put in your mind too. Let's just say, for instance, you look at that, and let's say you're the Texans, you trade up to go get one of those wide receivers.
Mm-hmm.
And Jalen Carter's still at 12. That's when you know, hey, we're not going to draft. We're not going to go back no far.
So you think Jalen Carter might be on that Warren Sapp route?
Oh, I told you when it first happened. When I said to you when it first happened, somebody's going to get a Hall of Fame at 12. Somebody's going to get a Hall of Fame in those double digits, like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers end up getting with Warren Sapp.
Right. No, that's crazy. If he drops to number 12 and the Bears get him at number 12 and they move back and acquire more picks in the second and third rounds in order to get the player they originally wanted at the top of the draft, you talk about a fantasy.
Man.
That's a fantasy draft. That dude, things could have not gone any better for the Chicago Bears if it plays out that way.
Look, I mean, I've seen a lot of mock drafts push him down to 12 to the Texans, Jalen Carter. So, look, if I'm the Bears at 9 and somebody like that is still available and the Texans is right there, hey, I'm with it.
Man, I'm definitely with it. And I think Ryan Poles still has some willing and dealing in him. I don't think he's done.
Nah, he's not done.
Still, because that gap between that first round pick and that second round picks are late second round picks. Yeah. Right? So if they can get a couple of picks.
That I don't think that the Bears are going to stand pat, at least when it comes to possibly trading back into the first round. I think those two second round picks will be packaged to a late first rounder or early second rounder.
I agree, because I don't think they wait that long in between picks.
Yeah,
I think Ryan Poles is going to be a little more aggressive instead of just waiting for those picks to come around.
Yeah. No, I don't. Yeah, I don't think that they're going to stand pat and draft that. I mean, I'm cool. I mean, whatever happens. But I don't think that the Bears are going to stand pat and just wait if they see somebody down like at the beat. Let's say, for instance, Cam Smith is still around, because I've seen him slide it in the mid-teens to being a second round. So if a Cam Smith is available at the beginning of the second round, do you trade up? Do you trade 2 picks and go move up early into the second round to go grab him? Thinking about value, is there a wide receiver that might be a little bit sexy, or a defensive tackle or end that might be a little bit sexy at that point? I think there might be. I mean, we've seen in this draft there have been a number of people that slipped in that mid-teens area that has slid. Even looking at a Josh Downs is somebody that's a good possibility that probably will be a day 2 pick. And again, just talking about what I talked about earlier when it comes to the contracts, the way everything is set up with Claypool and DJ Moore. You do have a possibility to bring somebody young in your wide receiver room too. Question for you.
Let's get it. Let's get it.
So question for you. And I know that the Bears already have Cole Kmet. I know they're talking extension. They've been reportedly talking about extension and everything. But knowing where they come from, where Poles come from, and they utilize the tight end position, period. Could you see the Bears using a day 2 pick on a tight end?
If Michael Mayer, because this is where it gets interesting, Bang. We talk about this all the time. The NFL is full of winning organizations that take advantage of the dumb organizations. That's it. That's what they do, because dumb organizations get to the NFL draft and they overthink things, right? They'll overthink this Jalen Carter thing. They'll overthink Will Anderson and start talking about where his first step isn't that quick. But the dude all he does is produce, and he plays everywhere on the defensive line at the highest level against the best competition. They'll overthink that. They'll overthink Michael Mayer, who's been the best tight end, in my opinion, in the country for the last 2 years. They'll overthink him, right? They'll get the Kincaid kid, faster, Utah, a little taller, lankier, looks like he comes out of his breaks a little bit faster. If you want to nitpick, they'll overthink it, and they'll take him in the teens, and Michael Mayer will get down to the 20s. If I'm the Bears, you darn right I will move up and go get Michael Mayer if I had to move back in the first round late. If he drops that low, you darn right I go get him. Or in the second round, I get another kid from out west. They're like the Laporta kid from Iowa is very, very intriguing, right? Because he didn't have a quarterback this year. You talk about Michael Mayer didn't have a quarterback at Notre Dame this year. The quarterback situation at Iowa was worse.
You don't go wrong with getting a tight end from Iowa.
You get a tight end from Iowa. Heck, you don't go wrong getting a tight end from Notre Dame or Iowa. Hey, the NFL is full of them each and every week. I think week 18, if I'm not mistaken, was it 17 or 18? Some of the Irish fans in the chat probably helped me out. I think 5 tight ends from Notre Dame scored touchdowns in the NFL. It was like crazy. So, Laporta for me, if you don't get someone like Mayer, because I think the way it's going now, they're going to overdraft Kincaid early. They're going to overdraft him early. Mayer's probably going to drop a little bit. You would have to come back to the back end of the first round to get Mayer. I'm not taking Michael Mayer.
Hey, man, I missed the chat this whole entire time, man.
I don't know why. It's been lit. The entire show.
Man, shouts out to everybody up in the chat. And hey, that Simeon Rice comparison for Tyree Wilson. Sheesh.
If he can be anywhere near Simeon Rice.
Hey, if he's anywhere near Simeon Rice, I'll take that right now. Man, I'll take that right now. Is there somebody in, let's say, in like that 20-30 big boy range that is, other than the tight end, that is sexy enough for you to have a conversation with? We'll try to trade like those two second round picks to move up if you're a Bear. If you're the Bears.
To move up?
To move up back in the first round.
I'll be honest. It would have to be one of the wide receivers.
Okay.
It would have to be one of the wide receivers. And if Zay Flowers gets down to like the late 20s, I would think about it. But I probably wouldn't do it because he's very similar to what we already had.
Right.
So I think it would be Quentin Johnson. It's somebody I would think about because of his size. He gives us something that we don't have. Chase Claypool is the red zone guy with his size. Quentin Johnson is the speed guy. Like I said, he could be the DK Metcalf to the smaller receivers that are better route runners that we already have in the fold. Another guy that I would think about, strictly from – I know a lot of Notre Dame fans will probably bring up Isaiah Foskey. but you can get Foskey in the second round. I think Nolan Smith is going to go back in the first round. Linebacker, captain, linebacker from Georgia.
I don't think he get out of top 15. I think somebody gonna grab him.
That's a possibility. Because he definitely proved his worth at the combine.
I think somebody is going to take that chance on him in one of those one of those top 15 picks. His combine was explosive enough to get that. I'm not about to butcher my man's name.
What about now? Look, the Kalia Cansey kid. A lot of people are kind of talking about him being modeled after Aaron Donald. Right, he comes from Pittsburgh as well.
Fam, I get scared when anybody says names like Aaron Donald.
Well, they both came from Pitt. I think that's why they're making comparison.
Hey.
But the show he put on at 6 foot 280, I just worry about him at 280 and that 3-4. Like, is he gonna be playing big end? He definitely can't play nose.
Bruh, I'm gonna say this again. I don't care where you went to school at. I get scared when people put names like that on other people. Like Bryce Young is supposed to be Patrick Mahomes, but Bryce Young, I'm taller than Bryce Young, and he's 204 pounds for combine's sake.
Right.
No, I don't think nobody 5'10", 190 wants to be down in downtown Chicago with the Hawk. No, nobody wants that. So you could be
because he's still about 4 years away from being indoors.
They about 4 years away from being Arlington Heights, fam. That Hawk is a whole different breed for somebody that's 5'10", 190. With that being said, man, let me see. I'm not gonna butcher my man's name, but the lead lineman from Northwestern who had the great there you go. Yeah, there you go. I got told on one of my podcasts, man, they love listening to it because I'll butcher your name in a minute. But like his combine and where he sits at, I wouldn't be surprised.
The film bothers me.
The film bothers me.
He's solid. He's solid. But he's not superstar like his combine numbers might lead you to believe. So,
and I totally agree with you. But we know them the people in day two. Them the people you don't mind going down and grab because you just might get somebody, especially in where you might have, like where your offense and where your defense might set. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's sitting there at around like 40, 45. The Bears look at those two picks and be like, let's go get him.
And he's perfect because he fits that big end and what they want to do schematically in Matt Eberflus's defense. Now, the crazy thing is, I want to make sure I get this correct. Look, Ryan Poles went to 4 Northwestern games. So he's very familiar with them.
Mm-hmm.
He's he was going to check out Pete Skoronski, and he also went to the Northwestern Ohio State game to see their tackles as well. But he went to 4 Northwestern games, and trust me, like there's no reason to go to Northwestern football game at all.
No.
At all. But he got a good chance to not only see the tackles, but he got a chance to watch him as well. So your GM has seen him up close and personal.
Right. So that's why I wouldn't be surprised if Pete is there at 9. Pete wants to be there at 9. But it wouldn't shock and surprise me if you're looking at 40 and 45 and you're looking at your board and your board getting thin, hey man, let's go get him. But again, it's all dependent on free agency too. It's all dependent on what you go and grab out there in free agency and things and that shit. Yes, Vanilla Chill, yeah. Bryce will not be playing at that 204. He's gonna be playing at 195.
Absolutely.
Thank God that he won't be playing at 195 in Chicago weather in November, December. Because I'm 6 foot 300 and I don't want to be out there. I refuse to go to a Bears game after Thanksgiving.
It hits different after you turn 18, right?
Yeah.
You remember we used to stand on the bus stop like it was nothing.
Like it wasn't nothing. Now I'm like, nothing. I need the down coat.
Right.
Now I need the triple fat goose. Now I need the now need all of the gloves and the hats and everything. So yeah,
Ryan Poles talked about upcoming free agency in his plan. Check this out, Bang.
We have, just like the draft, we have players that are going to be in certain buckets for values. And, this year we have the ability to approach and go after a few of those guys. I think we're going to stay selective. We're going to have parameters that kind of match our values and our research. We have an unbelievable analytics team. Our cap group with Matt and Cliff do a great amount of research to kind of keep us in that range and making smart decisions. Because I think the key is we don't want to waste this opportunity and do something that's not sound, that doesn't allow us to have this flexibility in years to come. So that's the balance that you're trying to take advantage of now, but also not trying to hurt you down the road.
So this is really not just attacking free agency in 2023. This is with the vision of the 24 class as well.
Yeah.
And I think they're attacking the NFL draft in a way where they're looking at the 2024 NFL draft as well. Like you said, they know the two quarterbacks that are coming in 24. They know Marvin Harrison is going to be top 10 in 2024, so they might not go reach for another wide receiver in this draft, knowing that they have that pick coming up. So it's going to be very interesting. The defensive side of the ball is the best side of the ball in this draft, without question. So when you talk about that value bucket in free agency, I think they might be leaning towards the offensive line, ensuring that up in free agency, maybe with a sprinkle of defensive line help.
Yeah, that front seven is going to get some help, and that offensive line is going to get some help. It's just really about what are you willing to spend for 2023 and still have a good enough amount for 2024. Do you go and get a Hargrave who's 30 years old? But because the GM is familiar with him, it might be a bit easier for you to get. Or do you go get somebody like a Draymond Jones who's a younger, couple of years younger, and might have a big amount of money attached to him? Is it a McGlinchey who's familiar with the offense, who's a great run blocking tackle, or do you go get Orlando Brown? And what do you do in other positions again where we might just not be having major conversations around? Do you look at people in formally now of the Kansas City Chiefs organization? No, you need it. You need help at that end position. So does a Frank Clark looks attractive to you? We know this is somebody who can get to the quarterback. So is he an attractive prospect for you in free agency? I mean, you were formerly of that organization. You know how he how he get down. He's like a couple of sacks away from being the all-time leader in sacks in the playoffs. And then that's just that the questions I have more than anything other than is a Frank Clark or Yannick who is still like under 30, I believe, but I feel like he's been in the league for a while. But he's only less than 30 years old. What do you do at that linebacker spot? We got Sanborn and all of that, and he had a great year. He was having a great year until he got hurt. But what do you do at that linebacker position? Because we need it. We got a man from Indianapolis who looks like we're the favorite to get him, but what else do you do? Because I would have kept Roquan Smith. I'm sorry. I still would have kept Roquan Smith considering where we at right now. But now that we don't have him, I think a lot of our linebackers have lead in their feet. We need some quick, fast linebackers that's going to get to this ball.
Well, there's plenty of those in the NFL draft that you probably get in day 2 and even day 3. Linebacker position, you can find value. Yeah. Heck, we found value with Jack Sanborn.
Yes, we did.
I'll give you a perfect example. Jack Campbell from Iowa. Very fast.
He's another one that I thought about.
He's one at the back end of the second round. If you're still sitting there with both of those picks, someone you take a chance on, right? Yeah, I think he's ranked like in the top 50 of all prospects, according to Daniel Jeremiah
Yep.
on NFL.com. Jack Campbell is someone that's been impressive that we thought might enter the draft last year. He decided to go back for his senior year, but he's a very athletic interior inside linebacker that comes from that 3-4 system in Iowa that will fit right into what the Bears want to do. You talked about free agency. You have Tremaine Edmonds.
Yes,
That's
Tremaine Edmonds just got let go by the Bills.
David Long just got let go by the Titans. So I think in the coming days there are going to be more options of linebackers. Your guy, longtime Seattle Seahawks, that just got released. He went to the Rams. He got Bobby Wagner, the one that used to keep Roquan off the All-Pro teams and the Pro Bowl team,
man,
all the time.
Yeah, Bobby. I think Bobby's going to end up going back to Seattle, but we need that type of linebacker to man this defense. Like you got Shaquille Darius Leonard, that did the thing for Eberflus in Indianapolis. So, like, are we believing that Sanborn is that type of linebacker, or no? Are we going out and getting somebody that could be our Shaq Darius? I'm just gonna call him Shaq Darius.
Like I said, man, there's so much depth, in my opinion, in the NFL draft. I mean, Levante David is another one.
Yes, he is.
Free agency, right? You get him, but the price tag connected to him, I don't know if he's in that value bucket. I said Jack Campbell, Drew Sanders from Arkansas. You got Trent Simpson from Clemson, right? Let's see, Yvonne Pace Jr. from Cincinnati. I saw Notre Dame fans know about him. Someone that intrigued me until I saw he didn't perform as well. I didn't like his time, but Cam Jones from Indiana has had like 2 consecutive years of just crazy production at Indiana. And then Noah Sewell, Penei Sewell's younger brother, that's coming out of Oregon this year. He's another one. He performed okay at the combine athletically, but his production is crazy. So, like I said, you can get value. You can definitely get value at the linebacker position in the NFL draft. And all of these guys are projected to go anywhere from the 44th pick all the way down to the 146th pick. So now you're talking about second or fifth round where you might be able to get that next guy to be your leader.
Yeah. So I think that when we look back at this off season, 2023, this might be one of those off seasons where we look back and we say to ourselves, this is the off season that changed our course. Draft pick here, signing there, some trades here, there. I think that this is the off season that we're going to look at what possibly we can look at, and we say this off season changed the course of our history. And it starts with that trade. I mean, honestly, no, I won't say it starts with that trade for the number 1 pick. I think it probably starts with the trading of Khalil Mack, the trading of Roquan Smith, the trading of Robert Quinn, really breaking down the team and losing, these stars and getting some of these picks. I think when we look back, that's the start of what could be a golden era age for Chicago Bears fans. And I'm not about to be on here and be predicting a whole bunch of Super Bowls. I'm not stupid enough to do that, especially in this day and age.
I'll say this
like that, but
realistically, they should be in the NFC Championship game in 2 years. Realistically,
that's exactly what I was gonna say. They should be a team that's in it every year, and just knowing how the league works and how fate works. The way this would look, it's about time we get into that stadium in Arlington. All of our players will either be in their prime or going into their prime. And we know what happens. We know what tends to happen when teams like that go into new buildings. That's all I say about
that. You're right. It happened for the Rams. And hopefully it's going to happen because the cash is going to be flowing, number one.
Yeah.
Cash is going to be flowing. They're building up to it. And by the time they get there, the cap space, that's one thing I like the way he's trying to build things. And he said, look, I want to give flexibility as we move forward, right? You expect the cap coming off of the pandemic to continue to go up in the NFL because the product is the number one product in all the sports across the world. It is what it is. TV revenue, sales, as far as apparel, everything is going to climb. Everything's going to climb. That's going to be a benefit for the Chicago Bears. And ultimately, in 2 years, they take care of business and they go ahead and they pick up the option or either head and go give Justin Fields a long-term deal.
Yes, sir. So,
but the only thing is that long-term deal, by the time we get down the road, is probably going to be 50 mil, 55 mil.
Hey, that's where we at in the world now.
Hey, Bang, appreciate you, man. We're going to get out of here. Once again, LL Chicago will keep pushing the limits. We're going to have more talk. The Bigs are going to be on next week, previewing the baseball season. Terrence Tomlin and Eugene McIntosh. So look for more content. It's LL Chicago for my guys, Jared Payton, JR Bang. I'm Sean Davis. Thanks for tuning in, man. LL Chicago. See y'all next time.